Hello, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar. MGAs continue to evolve at pace as they play an increasingly important role in helping brokers to access specialist expertise, launch new products, and respond to changing customer needs. I'm Dan King, and in today's session, we'll discuss the opportunities and challenges facing MGAs as they continue to mature. But before introducing our panel of experts, here's Matt Scott to talk us through the key findings of our brand new MGA performance report, which was published in association with the MGA Association and released just last week at its annual conference. Hi, Matt. Now, what's the purpose of this report and how did you conduct the research?
Thanks, Dan, and good afternoon, everyone. This is our fifth year of the research now, and once again, it's based on the analysis of company accounts. So we focus on three core pillars that we believe best reflect a firm's financial success. So these are growth, profitability, and productivity. Each NGA scores a core for each of those a score for each of those pillars, and then we combine them to produce an overall MGA performance rating. For growth, we've assessed the changes in revenue and profit over the past 12 months. Profitability is based on the 3-year EBITDA margin, and for productivity, we looked at staff costs as a percentage of turnover and also average revenue per employee, both of those over the past 12 months. To be in the analysis, MGAs must have filed full accounts at Companies House for each of the last 3 years and reported positive revenues and employed at least 10 staff over that period as well. And is essentially to give a bit of a snapshot in time, look at the financial performance of MGAs compared to the wider market.
Great. And what were the key themes that emerged from the research?
Well, I think the research shows just how resilient MGAs have been really in the face of maybe a bit more challenging market conditions than we've seen in recent years. Soft market, for example, has unsurprisingly affected growth, but aggregate revenue still climbed by 8%, down from around 17.3% for the same cohort of companies the previous year. And if we take out one major outlier that we saw in the data this time around, then operating profit remained relatively steady. It was down just 0.2% at the aggregate level. I think as well as that resilience is also a sign of a bit of the growing maturity of the market. And success for MGA certainly is about much more than just growth now, I'd say. And looking at the rating specifically, the average rating for 2026 stands at 51%, down a bit from 52.9% in 2025. The biggest change has been under our growth metric. The average rating fell to 52.5%, down from just over 55% last year. And that's the first, I suppose, real significant decline in this measure since our analysis began. But as I said, still represents good growth in a challenging market. Profitability rating fell to 47%, down 1.6 points from last year. This was, however, pulled down by that outlier I mentioned earlier. And even with that company in the analysis, this year's cohort still managed a 12.2% 3-year aggregate EBITDA margin. And most encouragingly, I'd say productivity rating stayed really high at 56.1%, broadly in line with last year. And it shows that the market's really setting itself up well for in the future. No doubt aided by investments in technology that could well push productivity higher in the coming years as well.
Okay, great. And which MGAs stood out as particularly strong performers?
Yes, we've recognised 6 MGAs this year that have achieved outstanding financial performance, significantly outperforming their peers, and we're delighted to give each of them an Insurance Data Lab Gold Award. Top of the rankings is Prevego Underwriting, a really impressive score of 71.9%, up from 69 last year when it finished second in our rankings. Our other award winners for 2026 are CFC Underwriting, Ambridge Europe, NBS Underwriting, MPR Underwriting, and UNA Underwriting. And MPR's award is particularly impressive because it means the MGA has now had a gold award from us for 5 consecutive years, which is actually how long we've been doing the analysis. So congratulations to everyone.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matt. So a huge well done to all of our Gold Award winners. This is the report, and it's available to download now at insurancedataLab.com and will be included in next month's newsletter, which all of you watching today will receive. Performance ratings for all the MGAs included in our analysis are on our benchmarking platform, alongside lots of other data on the performance of MGAs, insurers, and broking firms, covering underwriting, solvency, claims, complaints handling, and both customer and broker sentiment. If you're not a subscriber but would like to find out how any specific MGA has performed, just send me an email at dan@insurancedataLab.com. Now, joining Matt on today's panel, I'd like to introduce Ross Dingwell, CEO at both Unit Underwriting and Mission Underwriting, Karen Hogg, Chief Operating Officer at Stella, Tim Jones, Director at MPR Underwriting, and Mike Keating, Chief Executive of the Managing General Agents Association. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Now, I'd like this to be as interactive a session as possible, so please feel free to submit any questions, and I'll put as many as possible to the panel during the discussion. But to kick things off, Mike, we've just heard the findings from this year's MGA performance report. From the MGA's perspective, what do those findings tell you about the current health of the sector?
I think it's well, good afternoon, everybody. I think I'll use the phrase which was sort of mentioned many times last week at our annual conference. I think the MGA sector is in rude health, very good health at this moment in time. I think a little bit of context as well in terms of the numbers Matt has sort of shared, that if you look globally around the MGA sector, then the MGA sector is actually writing $160 billion of premium. So that is not insignificant in any shape or form. And the sector again globally has grown by 23% compound growth over the last sort of 5 years. So these are very, very significant numbers. I think the underwriting expertise within MGA sector is by far the best it's ever been. And that comes from sort of market commentators such as sort of Rachel Turk at Lloyd's and our sort of valued sort of insurer members. I think the level of due diligence which MGAs now do on their own carriers, where before it was perhaps more one way, they want to have a partnership, they want to be long-term sort of partners. I think this again is sort of a maturity of the MGA sector. So I think it's in a great position as where we stand now, without a doubt, and no doubt we'll touch on it. Those headwinds and the soft market will be challenging for MGAs as well as the whole sector overall. And I'm confident that there's enough muscle memory within the MGA sector to navigate their way through that. But it'll be very interesting in terms of what the MGA sector and the sector overall looks like, when we navigate this sort of, rating environment and what it looks like when the market turns. But overall, in great health.
Thank you, Mike. And Tim, over to you, because congratulations, first of all, on yet another Insurance Data Lab Gold Award. Remarkably, as Matt said, this is the 5th year in a row that MPR has been recognised with one. So what's been the key to your sustained success, particularly in what's becoming an increasingly competitive market?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and hello, everyone. Well, it's really testament to the MPR team, if I'm honest with you. We've been around now coming up to 10 years. We've got over 225 years of combined financial lines experiences where we specialize. So I think the key thing is we've really invested in people and talent, and you'll see that across a lot of the MGA sector, I think. From a business perspective, it's just doing the simple things well, service expertise, approachability, putting our talent at the forefront of how we operate. Behind the scenes, you've got to attract and maintain long-standing and strong capacity, build those relationships. And having that long-standing capacity and stability, you can really promote that to your brokers and clients, particularly through fluctuating market cycles, which we've seen recently. So yeah, thank you very much. It's to the team really, and obviously doing things well. We have done for our nearly 10 years in the business so far.
Thanks. And Ross, congratulations to you too, as also has a gold award. What would you say has been the biggest kind of driver of your success?
Yeah, thanks, Dan, and good afternoon, everybody. So, like Tim, there's no silver bullet to these things, and whilst it's great to see the financial metrics that yourself and Matt look at. I think ultimately the first place I'd start is people. We have got a great team of people. I've been the CEO of Una for 18 months, and there has been quite a bit of change of personnel within that time. And I'm delighted with the quality of the team that we've got. We write across 5 different product lines within Una. We've seen a lot of product innovation over the last 18 months, and we continue to innovate pretty much every month in terms of trying to improve where we can. And we're starting to see that sort of results. And I'm sure there'll be a consistent message through this about how we differentiate ourselves with our broker partners. But two other things which are really important to me, and you don't always necessarily see these things in the financial metrics, but one is consistency. I think a lot of the things we talk about in the business is sort of being consistently boring. And I think brokers really like that. Brokers want people that they can go and speak to, and they know they're going to get the same consistent responses day after day. And then the final thing is fun. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we all spend a lot of time at work, and we're trying to make it a fun place to be. Life's too short not to be enjoying yourselves at work. So we try and make it fun and enjoyable at the same time. So hopefully if we can continue to do that, then hopefully in 5 years' time, I can be standing here like Tim and say that we've had it consistently for that length of time.
Excellent stuff. Thank you, Ross. So Karen, listening to Ross there and to Tim earlier, do those characteristics about kind of what drives success resonate with you? So from your perspective, what do you think separates, I guess, the highest performing MGAs from the rest of the market?
Yeah, that's a great question, and hello everyone. When you read the report itself, there's no single formula, and I think one of the guys there just said there's no silver bullet. But if you look at the top 6 that you've listed out, and we're lucky to have 2 on the call today that we can all learn from, it's the combined strong margins with continued investment and efficiency and still finding a way to grow. And I think for Stella, when we came into this market, it just started to soften. And so obviously as a new-ish MGA, you want to get your growth and you have all your plans in place and all your aspirations in place, but the market starts to soften and we had to make a deliberate call not to chase it and protect our loss ratio rather than growth. And that was quite tough, but I think once we've made that decision and we consistently stayed with it and demonstrated to our capacity providers that that's what we were going to do, then it became easier. But I'll be honest, it meant a huge amount of effort just to stand still while we held price and appetite firm, while we could see others writing more business. So I think staying really consistent and true to what means success and not chasing volume. And when you look at this year's report, if you remove that broker that's the MGA that slightly pulled the results down, then you can see that discipline is what's helped MGAs to retain their place. So yeah, lesson learned for us in that process is just some of the stuff that Ross touched on is we have a single line of business just now. That wasn't the intention, is to have multiple lines. There's certainly more than one. That means that when you're in a softening market, you've got other levers or other things in your business that you can look at. So I think for us, staying focused and protect loss ratio meant we probably took a little bit longer than we'd like to look at other product lines, and also just addressing efficiencies in your own cost base. I think if you're going to be a really successful MGA and get to those returns, when you realise your top line is going to be impacted, you have to become laser-like focused on your bottom line. And as someone said to me a long, long time ago, and it's always stuck with me, top line's vanity and bottom line is sanity. And probably we spent so much time focusing on, what we need to do from a top line perspective. It took us a little longer to start really looking at that cost base, which we're doing now. So I think part of being a successful MGA is having that laser-like focus on the top of the funnel, as well as, your cost base and what's coming out at the bottom.
Oh, thank you, Karen. That's really interesting. And Ross, alongside running an award-winning MGA, you also helped to launch new MGAs through Mission. Are you still seeing strong appetite from entrepreneurs looking to launch new underwriting businesses?
Yes, so I'm the CEO of both Una and Mission, and we are both subsidiaries of Accelerant Group. And for those of you who don't know what Mission does, but Mission is a capital partner to support new MGAs. So what that does, it provides the capital to get it set up. It provides the access to the insurer market, operations, IT, regulatory framework, marketing, everything to support basically the entrepreneurs to do what they do best, underwrite and distribute. And then the point of, are we still seeing good pipeline? The answer is yes, actually. So there is no shortage of opportunities that we see. Obviously, like many businesses, you see lots of opportunities, but you don't take up a lot of the opportunities. There's a lot of them that are not right for us, or we might not be right for them. I think the crux of it is like most MGAs, what are they bringing to the market, whether that be specialism, whether that be service, but what is it that's going to make them stand out from the crowd with the broker partners and clients? Ultimately, if you're trying to be a subscale generalist, then the chances of you surviving are very, very slim with regards to that. But as I say, we're seeing great opportunities. We just announced last week our 11th MGA in Mission, and that's a specialty commercial business which has been led by a founder who's got over 40 years experience across both the insurer and the MGA market. But equally, 2 weeks ago, we announced within Una that we've launched a new specialist personal lines division, which is a combination of people who have come from a large composite and people who have come from MGAs. So we're seeing opportunities at all different angles coming from all different areas. And I think just takes it right back to what Mike said right at the beginning. The MGA market is in definitely rude health at the moment.
Great, thank you, Ross. And so Mike, coming back to you, are you seeing a really healthy pipeline of new MGAs coming through as well?
Yeah, so we have a membership common renewal date from 1st September through to August, end of August. And obviously we've got quite significant MI on members. But if we look at the number of new MGA members that we've onboarded so far in our current financial year, over 65% of those would be entrepreneurial new startups. So that echoes and underlines sort of Ross's point in terms of what Mission are doing. They're a great supporter of ours. You've got other areas such as One Advent, you have Davis who do this sort of incubator type thing. So it's definitely an area which continues to grow. And actually, it's all cemented around the underwriting expertise, which, the underwriters who are moving or transitioning from large insurers in the main, and they see the opportunity to create value for themselves personally, but also within the business which they're joining. And I don't see that slowing down. And the reason I don't see that slowing down because there isn't any shortage at the moment for both risk capital. There's clearly no shortage for investment capital. And providing, as coming back to Ross's point, providing that there is a credible business plan delivering that point of differentiation, then those individuals will always find a home where they can actually develop. So it's a very, very exciting part of the market. And again, retaining that underwriting discipline, getting support from areas like Mission as they grow that business, is very, very important. And I can just see that being sort of expanding further over the next sort of 18 months, 2 years.
Thanks, Mike. And Karen, you touched on this earlier, but obviously you were involved in the early days of Stella in the UK, and you mentioned some of the challenges, but what other challenges did you as a new MGA at the time come up against, and how did you overcome them? Oh, I think you're on mute, Karen.
I absolutely knew I was going to do that at some point. There's from our perspective, there was 3 things. And part of it was the world does not move as quickly as you do as a startup MGA. You are really focused on getting all your key milestones over the line, but there are so many people you're dependent on. So our expectations of when things would happen probably took a little bit of time to adjust. One of the biggest ones for us was onboarding new partnerships. So we had a really healthy pipeline. We had 25 partners that we wanted to onboard. Heavily dependent on software houses to get that trading connectivity. The market's still very, very dependent on that space, and some absolutely move faster than others, and none of them are cheap. And when you get a delay from the software houses, you're not trading. So that's no income while your costs are already, going out the door. So I think for us, we quickly reorganised ourselves and how we operate with the software houses and how we connected with them in terms of those projects. And we became so slick at onboarding broker partners, that we started to then move at quite an impressive rate. But yeah, so you can't leave anything to chance, I think, when it comes to your pipeline. And the other one is on capacity. So you have this really nice sort of courtship with your capacity provider where everyone's in love and it's all great and you do your due diligence and you learn loads about each other. And then when you go live, it's like, oh, we don't trust you yet, so we're just going to put the reins on you a little bit. And so I think just realising how long it takes to build trust with your capacity. We have very supportive capacity. But even early on, we wanted to move at pace and they weren't used to that either. We work in our product as van, it's a segment of car. So you could be deploying a couple of changes a week. And so we had our decision making, our deployment models, everything down to pat, but we had to take everything for sign off in those early days. And the speed at which we were taking them in and sort of demanding a response back was quite challenging. So we just had to learn how to operate in that space. But once you build the trust, there's less caution, you get more delegated authority. And so it's just, I think, having a plan, like understanding that in those early days, you'll go through that cycle and just having a plan for how you'll get to know each other. Because there was a point where we were just starting to really annoy our capacity because of the speed that we were taking things in at. So, you just have to have, like any relationship, have healthy conversations and keep communicating. The other one was just right sizing the business. The temptation was, and we did do this to an extent, is we hired for the business that we wanted to be rather than for the business we were that day. And so we were bringing maybe some spend into the business just ahead of the income. So I think if you're a new MGA, then just be patient, I think, on the cost pace. And make sure like all the other things are going to happen, ahead of that. If you get the timing wrong either way, it hurts, too early, you're overstaffed against income, and too late, you can't capitalise a trading relationship. So it's not like always the easiest thing to do, but certainly something you should focus on.
That's really interesting. Thanks for that. And Tim, as more MGAs enter the market, does it become harder to differentiate yourself? Is having a specialist proposition enough anymore?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we've sort of touched upon this a little bit already. So it depends what you do and how you do it. I think if your proposition is unique and strong, then brokers are going to come to you. And because of that, capacity providers are going to want to partner with you. I think if you don't have a huge amount of differentiation from competitors or insurers, then that's when it might struggle. And I think the guys have said, Ross and Mike already, there's quite a lot of capacity available at the moment. So perhaps that differentiation is a bit relaxed potentially because insurers are looking for opportunities for growth. So I think it's going to be much more important, I think, when capacity is harder to come by, just what that proposition the MGA has and the differentiation they have. There might be some eyes on what they're doing compared to competitors, or certainly what an insurer can do themselves internally. So lots of bits to discuss around obviously technology and that element as well. But yeah, it's obviously there's competition out there. So the differentiation is a key aspect going forward, definitely.
Thanks. We've had a question come in from a panelist, which I think now might be a good time to ask. It's for Ross and Mike. And it's just a quick question from somebody anonymous saying, is there a way for a new MGA to connect with Mission and or the MGAA to get early feedback? So I'm guessing that means before they officially maybe, launch or decide to find capacity.
You want to say that, Ross?
Well, I was going to say, to engage with Mission, if you want to know what we do or understand more, then just contact me and I will speak to them, or you can speak to one of my team. So there's a simple answer on Mission.
Great.
Yeah, and just aligned with that, and we do work with sort of Ross, as he knows, that the MGA does have a specific incubator membership aimed at those sort of startups, because we recognise, as Ross articulated, sort of some of the challenges, and we can support members through that avenue. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. And to the people tuning in, feel free to ask more questions as we go along. We've got a couple more that have come in that I'm going to save for a bit later on, because some of the subjects that they're asking about we're kind of going to touch on in a bit. But one of the challenges that everyone's facing right now, and it's been mentioned in passing today already, is the soft market. So Mike, what are you hearing from your members about that?
Well, it's real, and it's real across most product lines, so it's not a myth. But I think MGA's, what my members say to me is they're trading furiously. Okay, so that everyone's working twice as hard. But I think what I would share with sort of people on this sort of webinar is something which Nick Houghton sort of shared at our conference last week. And one of the things he said around MGAs, on at least the fact that how strong the sector is around level of service. Okay, so he effectively said to the audience that the level of service which MGAs and Tim and Russell sort of have comment on this, no doubt, and Karen, is absolutely unrivaled. So brokers obviously are dealing with the end paying customer. They are under huge pressure. And what Nick was saying, who obviously is, under the JMG banner, has sort of purchased 70 businesses plus, I think, in the last whatever it is. He said, providing MGAs, as well as the differentiation which Tim referenced, providing they maintain that laser-like focus on their distribution and continue to deliver the unrivaled level of service, then those MGAs will always be attractive to the broker community and will survive. So, rates are falling without a doubt, but the level of service which MGAs are providing to the broker community, has not suffered one bit. So that's key for in terms of what our members are doing currently.
Okay, thank you. And Karen, the motor market in particular has always been quite susceptible to changing premiums. So how is Stella handling those conditions?
So it is a soft market, and we've been here before, but Stella have been here before in my career, but this is an unprecedented 20% rate drop for van. Like, it's never experienced that in a soft market before. So for us, it was just brutal timing, of coming into market with growth plans, thinking you've got all your ducks lined up, and it just became so challenging. It has slowed. We expected to see a hardening by now. We're still hopeful looking into half two that we'll see that, but we're encouraged that the rates have slowed, or the decline has slowed. There's still a few things where we've seen insurers coming back into van because car itself is so tough, that van's given them an opportunity for growth. And also, when you've got a few players in your space who are up for sale, then they will chase growth to make their business look more attractive, right? But these are the things that we're used to. So remaining disciplined and protecting your loss ratio rather than chasing, growth. You don't know what other people look like. They're writing a lot of business, but you don't know whether they're just chasing top line. It's rarely bottom line. So, maintain your own discipline. I think as well, it meant that we've had to really focus on other parts of the value chain. So like claims. So leaving nothing to chance and understanding your entire value chain. So our top line target we were able to reduce because we were able to make savings in our claims relationship. So we TPA our claims, but we had a really forensic look at leakage, costs of third-party claims, all the heads of loss and where we can actually influence them and tighten up our management. And that made a significant difference. And in car, in particular, it's somewhere that you need to look because you're dealing with high volume, typically. We also invested in a pricing capability. So we recognised that to even get any growth, we just had to massively improve where we were. So we have a dedicated pricing team now. We put in tools like Radar and Emblem. These are all big investments, but it meant that we could price much more granularly, which is what you have to do in the motor segment. And reflect risk pricing more precisely than pricing broadly, and hoping it averages out. And then longer term, we definitely need to diversify. So moving into just broaden our footprint in general on the line that we have, and then how we expand into new lines as well. But yeah, it is a tough market to be in. But I think if you're really focused on those things, that definitely helps.
Thank you. And Tim, what does soft market actually mean in practice for you when you're running an MGA?
Yeah, I think it's sort of echoing what the guys have said, really, without too much repetition. But it's tough, It's I don't think anyone seems to enjoy it. I think growth is more challenging. I think as Karen said, in terms of underwriting discipline, that's got to be front and center. Really, that doesn't leave you. There will be a temptation, I think, for people to chase growth, potentially broadening their appetite or broadening cover or reducing pricing. But for longevity and sustainability as an MGA, you really need that discipline front and center. I think for us, we've got 20 plus different financial lines products, so that sort of diversification within financial lines is there for us. So if we've got a couple of products that are in the really soft cycles, which we have, it's not across our entire book, so we can kind of just take the foot off the gas a little bit there with chasing that market and look at other products that we're looking at. I think it's important to say as well, it's not all bad. I think what we find particularly in the regions is that a lot of brokers are now more comfortable finding that price and capacity locally than perhaps wholesaling into London. We're a regional specialist, so we're sort of seeing that element creeping a little bit, where less businesses perhaps going into London, where capacity might have been centered in a harder market. And then I think as Mike said as well, that sort of expertise and longevity, people have been through a hard market relatively recently, so you'd like to think that memories are there, that it's not always like this, and that consistency that Ross mentioned and having a market that has that longevity is really important in a soft market.
Thanks. And Ross, during the prep call, you made the point that a soft market can actually create opportunities. So where do you see those opportunities? Can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, I'll just touch on one thing that Tim just said there. It's like, it's not all doom and gloom. I think it's easy to take this sort of soft market and just say it's all difficult, it's too hard, etc. and so on. But that's, I'm probably a glass half full type of individual. So clearly it's a real thing, the soft market. But I think, like Karen said, it really gets people to raise their game, and the better quality businesses will survive and exceed in there. But I suppose ultimately, why do I see it as an opportunity? The large incumbent insurers that are out there who are sitting on multi-million books of business, obviously if their books come back by 20%, they're really focused on trying to retain and look after the existing book. And you have to write an awful lot of business to actually grow. But if you're a smaller, more nimble business, and obviously with my mission hat on, we support startup MGAs, really gives them an opportunity to really be laser focused on new business and look for the right opportunities with the disciplined underwriting and really making them stand out differently from what's in there. And I suppose the reason why I say it's an opportunity, the evidence that I've got for the MGAs that we've launched over the last 18 months, which you would argue is when we've been in this soft market, I'm seeing them successful, exceeding their current business plans and seeing more and more opportunities. So, like all these things, yes, it's difficult, but if you're doing the right things, then there's definitely opportunity out there.
Great, thank you. We've had a question come in about the soft market, so now's probably a good time to ask it before we move on. So Ian Thompson has asked, is the softer market changing your priorities for claims delivery? And it might be picking up on what Karen said earlier, and he's saying things like, are leakage control and leveraging claims data more important now than, say, 12 to 24 months ago? Who wants to answer that one?
I don't mind.
Yeah, sorry. Do you mind? Yeah, this is quite a hobby horse of mine in terms of the claims ecosystem, and one of the questions we posed last week actually was, and one of the questions is that in a soft market, and I think the guys have already touched on it, claims is the only lever where you can actually add margin back in. All right. So then the question becomes, and this is not controversial, is that, is the claims ecosystem stable irrespective of market conditions? So how much focus is there on claims in terms of cycle times, leakage, fraud and whatever, when you have a tailwind of rate increases, as opposed to when you've got a headwind of rate reductions? Is that then the time? Now my view is, and this might be sort of slightly evangelical, is that you should take the market conditions out of any sort of claims delivery, and you should be absolutely maximizing your claims leakage, fraud, cycle times, all for the benefit of the customers. The realist in me, if I'm being honest, would suggest that when you have a tailwind of rates behind you, I'm not sure your focus on claims delivery is quite as forensic as it is when it's coming back. But that may be me being cynical, having grey hair, etc. But there we go. That's my penny's worth on that.
Thank you. Does everybody want to add anything else before we move on to that question?
I'll add to that. So yeah, Mike's right, as always. And Sam, who is the owner of our business, is obsessed with managing claims costs. But we didn't talk about it for a while. To Mike's point, when we're chasing growth and onboarding new partners, it was claims is claims, right? As long as our customers we're getting good outcomes for customers and our scores are good and all of those things, that was like, okay, there's no noise coming from that area. But when it got really tough, and we started introducing new models that were saying, well, where's the data for this, and what's your flywheel, in terms of like all your data feedback, then we realised we were a little bit like underwater in a few things, and the focusing on SLAs is not enough, or you need different measures. And so we get really under the skin of it, and just really surprised ourselves just at what we found. And I think there's a lot of legacy stuff in claims as well, that how things are done, like that's more difficult to maneuver, and getting data back as well has not always been the slickest. So we've looked at the market, we've looked at different TPAs in that area, and I think there's some really good options out there that can help with some of those solutions now. And so I think, like, as an MGA, as a small, we're a medium-sized MGA, but for us to bring some of that cost into our business, even with the savings, is tough. So finding solutions through third parties, I think for us has been really encouraging. But I think it was a soft market, and looking at all our opportunities that led us there, which I think has been a really healthy place. And I don't think it's something we're going to take our eye off now as a result.
Great. Thank you, Karen. Now, moving on from the soft market, we know that insurance is very much a relationship business, but it'd be interesting to just talk a bit about how those relationships maybe have changed in recent times. So sticking with you, Karen, if that's okay, would you say brokers have higher expectations of MGAs now than they used to? And if so, what do they now expect from MGAs? And is this any different to what they expect from insurers?
Well, my own experience is brokers have definitely increased their expectations. I don't know whether it's just of MGAs in general or just the market. When we went out to sign up some broker partners, I was like, yeah, we'll go out and sign up some broker partners. This would be great fun. And then they were like, well, why? Why should we add you to our business? What are you bringing to the table? And so certainly at the point of signing up, you had to be really clear how you would add value to that broker's business, that you weren't just going to come along and cannibalise another relationship. And also that you had really strong capacity. So a lot of the brokers, for us, we have AA rated capacity, and it's a big composite, right? And that helped massively. There's been, in recent years, there's a lot of MGAs who have had to stop trading because their capacity provider has exited the market. And so I think as a result of that, then brokers are far more demanding of you when you come looking to join their business. We had a lot of due diligence done on us, which was really unusual as well. So that was different. And then once you're live, I think it comes back to what Mike said earlier, is like, every broker partner, the relationship you build with that broker partner, your ability to show them as an MGA that you're nimble, that you can make decisions quickly, that you can respond quickly to them, that they won't get lost in queues or behind other partners or, any of those things, means that they then start coming to you with opportunity. And that's what we're experiencing now, is like, we're a year in, just over a year now with most of our broker partners, and they're coming to us with opportunities that they know they can't take elsewhere.
Great, thank you. And Tim, anything you'd like to add to kind of the expectation that brokers now have of MGAs?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Mike alluded to it, and the guys have said as well. It comes down to service, I think, and that's where the MGA market shines. And that service takes different forms, sort of in the modern world. Some people are going to want you to come to their office. Some people might want you to present to their team on a Teams call, or as we're doing here, a seminar. But what doesn't change is it's got a level of service there that's exceptional, and I think that's really, really important. And one thing we talk about is having that human connection as well. It's having somebody at the end of a phone, end of an email. I think again, that's something the MGA sector does very, very well, is having somebody there that's available. And that service isn't just there, it's quick service, and it's knowledgeable service from experts. So I think that's fair for our brokers to expect that of the MGA sector.
Okay, thanks. And Ross, do you think brokers now see MGAs as part of their general placement strategy rather than somewhere just to place difficult risks? And if so, why do you think that's changed?
Yeah, so I think I've had the benefit of working in all across all three disciplines. So I spent a number of years as an insurer. I spent 21 years at Hiscox. I then spent 3 years as a broker with Partners and now in the MGA space. So I think I've got quite a unique perspective on this. I think 10 years ago, brokers used to see MGAs as probably a bit opportunistic and was a sort of place of last resort. But absolutely now, it is a core part of the placement strategy. And I think what's happened is if you break into the brokers into two buckets, so you've got the sort of smaller, mid-size brokers who frankly see MGAs as sort of bedrock almost as part of their placement strategy because obviously they can't get the focus and don't get the attention from the larger insurers. So it's core to them. But even when you go further up the chain and you look at the sort of larger brokers, consolidators, you hear the rhetoric come out from them all the time is we don't want to use MGAs, we want to use the sort of larger core markets, particularly the soft market. And yes, it is more difficult to get scale with them, but if you look at all the large brokers, predominantly they've all got the exact same placement strategy. They'll have their tier one markets they want to deal with, who are, the AXAs, the Avivas, the Intacts in this world. And they're looking to try and get 70 to 75% of their business placed with their core one markets. That leaves a lot of business. 25 to 30% of a Gallagher's account is billions of pounds for other people, specialists in MGAs to go after. So whilst they're still trying to reduce the numbers they're using, I absolutely think it's a core part of the placement strategy, regardless of size.
Well, great, brilliant, thank you. And Matt, from the conversations you have with both brokers and MGAs, are you seeing expectations change? Is there now a greater emphasis on performance and value rather than simply offering a specialist product?
Yeah, I think a few years ago that specialism was, probably enough to make you stand out and help those more difficult risks. So I think it's more of a starting point now than a real differentiator, and that speaks to the maturity of the MGA market. I think brokers are becoming much more evidence driven. They're asking more, can this MGA consistently deliver good outcomes for my clients? I think, capacity providers are getting more kind of intelligent in the conversations they're having as well. It's not just about the growth they can deliver and, helping to grow a book. I think it's, as Karen said, that bottom line is important, being able to deliver, sustainable, profitable results, underwriting discipline, strong governance. I think that's all important. I think data and benchmarking plays into that as well, becoming increasingly important. Firms on both sides are really wanting that independent evidence of how an MGA is performing, rather than relying on maybe, historical relationships or anecdotal feedback. I think regulations played a bit of a role in that, kind of consumer duty and fair value. And I think that's all helped. So it's moved the conversation on really a bit from, what do you do and to, tell me how well you do it. And I think that's increasingly important now. And it's maybe changed the types of relationships MGAs have with their partners, really.
And Mike, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I would just pick up on Tim's point, which I think was really, really pertinent. So access to decision makers can never be underestimated, and MGAs have excellent underwriters who've got authority to make decisions there and then. They can change program designs to meet brokers' needs, and that is such a competitive advantage. As opposed, at times where they have to go through a labyrinth of sort of different handoffs in some of the large insurers till they get to someone who's got the authority to do it. And Tim articulated it very well. And brokers will gravitate to where they're going to get great service, access to decision makers with great products and competitive pricing. So that's definitely where we are at this moment in time and have been for a while.
Yeah, great, thank you. So one of the other topics I'd like to move on to talk about now is technology. Tim, you made a point, I think, in our prep call that technology should support people rather than replace them. So it'd be really interesting if you could just talk a little bit about how you're putting that philosophy into practice.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think you should always look to embrace ways of bringing efficiencies into any business. That's nothing new, and it's been around for a long time. Technology and automation has been around for a long time, and there's always been that element that it threatens the skills of people. In fact, when we started at MPR in 2017, there was a Sunday Times article that said there was going to be 98% of all underwriters are going to be out of jobs, and it was not the backdrop in which to start an underwriter-led MGA. But that was nearly 10 years ago, and we're still very much an underwriter-led MGA. So at MPR, we use technology. We're not afraid of it. It's there to solve a problem. So for us, that's sort of streamlining what you'd probably class as everyday simple tasks, to free our people up to do what they're good at, which is providing that level of service to brokers, the underwriting element. So yeah, we'll use technology, we'll embrace technology, but humans for us remain at the forefront of what we do, as Mike said, in terms of that expertise and presenting that to our brokers.
Okay, and Ross, how do you approach technology at Una and with the other businesses that you work with through Mission?
First of all, I'm impressed that Tim answered a technology question without saying AI. So that was quite impressive. So
we'll come on to that later, though, Ross.
Exactly. So, yeah, well, I mean, I think so. If I look at Una, it's been going for 10 years. So we use 3 policy admin systems at the moment, which is not ideal for optimization. So we're having to look at that. In Mission, we use 2 policy admin systems. But I think, stuff that we are looking to improve the business, we've got a great data team in Mission, and we use that data plus the support of the data we get from Accelerant Group to really drive better decisions into the business. But, as Tim said, we will never replace quality people. But, AI is something we are trying to embrace in the business. So we've given all our staff access across both Una and Mission and the MGAs. All staff have got access to either ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, and really we encourage them to sort of experiment to try and see what they can do, and not looking for the big silver bullet solution. Small wins has a great momentum. We've got Accelerant, who other MGAs will be on this call as well, who are Accelerant members, who are running training programs for all MGAs to encourage them how to use AI better. But what we do is we don't start with, well, we've got this great tool, how do we solve a problem? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? And then think about what tools can help us actually do that. And fundamentally, it's about improving efficiency internal in our workflow process and how we improve the experience for our brokers as well. So it is the old cliche, it's a bit of a journey. I think we're all sort of learning a bit with regards to it as well. But, we are moving forward.
Thank you. And Karen, turning to you, how do you think technology and AI will transform MGAs over the next few years? And do you think people will always remain the differentiator?
And from people, absolutely, I do. But I think we can help to make our people more effective. So where we're using technology and AI, I don't know if you can hear my doorbell going, but I'm going to try and ignore it. So it's a critical area to focus on, absolutely, and the capability that comes from advances in tech and AI is significant. We live and die on our data, and specifically our ability to use it in risk and reserve modelling. So some of the investment that we've made in tech means that we can build smarter models, that we don't need to crank the handle the way we used to on data, that we're less dependent on Excel spreadsheets. And so from a people point of view, it means that our underwriters and our pricing people are freed up for the actual decisions that require human judgment, rather than just cranking the handle and building things all the time on data. AI, all our staff now have a Claude license and have access to ChatGPT, and we have connected it to Snowflake, which is our data warehouse. So now in the morning I can quickly ask, like, Claude, what is our retention? What is the retention rate off the book, off the broker, off this class of business? I can cut and dice it in lots of different ways, rather than having to either go off to underwriters or run some reports on Power BI or build a report. So I think for me, it's already game changing for us as a small business. I think you have to make sure you've got the right guardrails in place for your teams. You need to train people how to use it. You need to set rules. Claude, for people who use it, it hallucinates facts. And so sometimes it'll throw out something. I'll ask it to quickly pull me together a report, for something, and it'll include facts, and I'll say, where did you get it? And it'll confess that it made it up, right? So you have to be really familiar with, you know, some of those things. But I think it's like, don't be scared to move into it. A lot of people are just scared to start using it and scared of what it means. But for me, it has significantly increased the bandwidth of our teams to be more productive, to make better decisions, to get to things quicker. We're building a risk model just now. We'll do it in 6 weeks. It would have taken us 6 months. And most of that time is just validating everything that it tells us with fact and going through it from that point of view. And also, I think when you're out there looking for that tech partner, it's always been true for me that there's a lot of people make huge claims on how they can save your business or create an efficiency or solve your problems. And it's so difficult to find the right technology partner. But I think just be prepared to kiss a lot of frogs, you know, before you find them, and use AI to help you. You know, what questions should I be asking here? You know, just some of those things I think just helps to make us a bit more rounded. Yeah. So I think you've got to be in the space of technology and AI, and getting those benefits into your business for me.
Thanks. And following on from that, Matt, a lot of our work at Insurance Data Lab, it kind of revolves around helping firms make better decisions by having access to really credible, valuable insights. Are you seeing MGAs becoming more sophisticated in how they use data and benchmarking?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things we're seeing a lot of is data moving from being more of a kind of a reporting tool to a, you know, strategic decision-making tool. And I think relative performance is key for that. That's driving a lot of the interest we see in kind of benchmarking data. You know, it's no longer enough to know your own numbers. You need that context to understand, you know, what good looks like and how you sit compared to that. Picking up on Mike's point earlier, we're also seeing data being used, you know, much earlier in the decision-making process. So like he said about MGAs asking more kind of about their capacity providers, I think we're definitely seeing a lot more of that. And likewise, the other way, you know, capacity providers and benchmark brokers are asking more questions too of MGAs. So increasingly, we're seeing data being used to, I suppose, support those conversations, not just kind of internal, you know, management or reporting up to existing, you know, through existing relationships. I think the firms that are getting, you know, the most value aren't necessarily the ones with the most data, but it's more about using the data to ask the right questions and get to the right answers that can help, you know, drive your business forward, really.
Okay, thanks. And Mike, do you have any wider insights to share from what you're hearing from your members about the use of technology, AI, data, etc.?
No, I think the panel colleagues have sort of covered that quite well. You know, I think one thing to remember, I know clearly Ross has got a challenge he's addressing, but generally most MGAs have got what I would call clean IT architecture. So they're not sort of burdened by sort of multiple systems, so they can get to one version of the truth very, very quickly. That's like housekeeping for them. And as Matt picked up, and that enables them to do sort of that, you know, the better use of data and benchmarking in terms of sort of supplementing and improving their proposition. You know, having one version of the truth on one system is a fantastic advantage.
Before we move away from technology and AI, there's one question that's come in from one of the viewers, which was, do you think there's a risk that carriers' use of AI will reduce some of the advantages of MGAs? If anyone would like to take that.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that cropped up a little bit at the MGA conference as well last week, Mike. You'll sort of remember that question. So yeah, potentially, yeah. Look, there's a different process here. I think everyone can sort of use AI, and the guys have already mentioned, look, it's there to solve problems. Okay, so I think one of the things we've seen recently is there's been a couple of big statements actually from insurers about cutting employees basically to embrace AI and bring that in. And I'd view that as actually positive for the MGA sector. We've spoken about relationships and service, and you're getting the big insurers now who aren't able to match MGA's service and expertise potentially at the front line, who are now saying, look, well, not only that, but we're going to bring in more automation and take people out of that equation. So, you know, it's tough for the industry to take, and I've sympathy for the organisations where it's become quite big stories recently. But so in answer to that question, I'd say, yeah, look, technology is going to affect everyone. I think the agility and speed of MGAs to embrace that technology will be equally the same as insurers, but hopefully keeping people, again, as we've said, at the forefront of what we do.
Thank you. Now, Just moving on, we've only got 5 minutes left, and I can't believe it's taking us 55 minutes before we talk about regulation. But we're going to talk about it now, and I'm just going to touch on it briefly. But turning to you, Mike, I know the MGAA works closely with the FCA. Where do you think we are with regulation today, and are you expecting MGAs to come under greater scrutiny? And if so, what should they be thinking about?
Well, I suppose, and conscious of time, I suppose this may surprise people. I think the MGA sector is in a fantastic place with the regulator. I think Andrew Ruddle was very complimentary last week around the sort of entrepreneur nature of MGAs and how his words, how MGAs are critical to the market and to customers in terms of solutions they're bringing. I think the FCA is on a good journey around simplifying insurance. We had those announcements more recently. And as an association, we have a sort of a direct line of communication that if there are areas of regulation which shouldn't be applying to MGAs, then we can have that discussion directly with them. So I don't see any greater scrutiny. I think we're in a very good place. The regulator understands the MGA sector far better than it did 5-6 years ago, and we should embrace that and just continue to have that open dialogue. So I'm very, very confident in terms of where the sector is with the regulator currently.
Good news. Does anybody have anything to add to that? And if not, we'll move on. But no, okay, great. So we are coming to the end of the time now anyway. So I just wanted to finish on a quick fire question for everybody, which is basically, it's very simple. What do you think are the biggest challenges and opportunities for MGAs over the next, say, 3 to 5 years? So Matt, coming to you first, maybe.
Yeah, sure. So I think there's some really exciting opportunities, really. I think the sector has a great reputation for, innovation, agility, specialist expertise, and, as we've heard a lot about as well, particularly service. And I think that's the big opportunity, really. And I think something we've seen time and time again, and I don't see that changing. Heard about, technology making some changes, and I think investing it in the right way to solve problems will be the key to, keeping that service going forward. And that can help, reignite the growth that's in the market. Challenge is going to be doing it sustainably. I think the firms that, continue to succeed will be those that stay disciplined, as Karen was saying, focusing on that bottom line earlier. And again, just making the right choices around data and technology and making sure it really adds value. I think that will help, really demonstrate strength to kind of brokers, customers, capacity providers, and that's where the opportunity lies, really.
Okay, thank you. And just the same question to you, Ross. The biggest challenges and opportunities you see for the next few years?
Yeah, so I think biggest challenge is potential saturation, and what I mean that is by numbers. Obviously, we've seen the numbers grow, but what that means is the cream will rise to the top. So, and then opportunity, I just think it's massive. Do you know what I mean? Mike started already at the beginning of the call with the numbers, 160 billion globally. If we just keep doing what we're doing and doing it well, then market share will increase significantly.
Great, thank you. And Karen, same question to you.
I think talent, actually, people are worried that AI is going to get in the way, having humans in the business. I am going to do a shameless plug. I am currently recruiting for a portfolio director. I have interviewed a number of people, and I think, we could do with, I think it's the demand on the talent and the cost of the talent we've got in the industry is huge. So for a place to work, I think we offer incredible careers. But I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges is attracting talent, and which has always been a challenge for insurance. And yeah, I agree with Ross. I think the opportunity is there. Like I can see it, and it's just working out. How do you get to it, and how do you get to it safely, and what's your right to be in that space as well. So yeah.
Thanks, and Tim.
Yeah, I won't repeat what the guys have said. I agree with what's been said already. I think, that the biggest challenge is, maintaining underwriting discipline whilst balancing growth and profitability, basically, which it always is. There's nothing different depending on the market cycle. One thing I will say, the key, I think, to the next 3 to 5 years is probably being incredibly honest and transparent with your capacity provider around expectations, because, if people are launching new MGAs with, great enthusiasm, there needs to be an expectation that the numbers might not be there as they potentially thought. So being realistic, I think, as well. But yeah, opportunities are there. As we said, it's a sector in rude health, and going from strength to strength. So yeah.
Thank you. And last word to always right Mike. Mike, what's your view on this?
No, I think everyone's covered it. So I think in opportunities, I think there's technology, which we covered, and I think there's further opportunities in distribution. And in terms of challenges, I think distribution could be a challenge in the next 3 or 5 years. So I think very much from a broker's sort of perspective, maintain the service delivery, never take your eye off your distribution and maximize that, and then that will give you some really good sort of tailwind to continue to be successful.
Fabulous. Well, thank you, everybody. That brings us to the end of today's session. So thank you, Ross, Karen, Tim, and Mike for joining me and Matt today, and to everybody for watching. As a reminder, everyone who registered for today's session will receive a copy of the MGA performance report that we referred to earlier, along with a recording of this webinar in next month's Insurance Data Lab newsletter. But if you can't wait that long, the report can be downloaded now at insurancedatalab.com. And if you'd like to find out more about Insurance Data Lab or would like to see a demo of our platform, feel free to email me at dan@insurancedatalab.com. But that's it. So thank you very much again, and goodbye for now.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.